When I first saw Avoid It, I thought it'd be a fun puzzle game based around cars and dodging obstacles. I wasn't wrong, but I expected much more than what I ended up getting. It's kind of how fast food looks really great on TV, but in person you get something that resembles what you originally saw on TV, but to a far lesser degree. With how the game currently is, it feels unfinished, and it comes off like a game meant more for mobile devices than for PC. It's not only because the menu looks very bare, but also because it feels like this game was rushed. Though there are parts of Avoid It that I enjoyed, I don't think others will be as patient with it as I was. What's worth acknowledging is that despite all of its flaws, I still think it's a game that has a lot of potential, which is something I'll get into further on in this review. The point of this game is very simple. You drive a car while avoiding obstacles as you make your way from point A to point B. The obstacles start off pretty simplistic and few, but the further you go into the game, the more there are, and they get different. I wish I could say that there's a wide variety of obstacles which leads to you being kept on your toes, but then I'd be lying. The truth is that there are around 3 main obstacles that get used throughout the game. What's different is usually their placement and number placed in a level. At first this really isn't that big of a deal, mainly because it was all new to me, but I soon realized that I wasn't going to be getting something else. It also didn't help that I was quickly able to go from the start of the game to level 12. To me that's disappointing because there were only 30 levels, and it took me around 20 to 25 minutes to go from 1 to 12. With some games I'd say that I was quickly able to progress thanks to my skill as a player, but that's not the case with Avoid It. The truth is that this game is very simplistic and it'll either leave you wanting for more, or you'll quickly move on from it and play games that have more to offer. Despite feeling this way, I was left with some positive impressions. To start off, I enjoyed how busted the car would get as a result of running into traps/obstacles. I assumed that the car would automatically stop running, but that really only happened when the damage was severe. Sometimes I'd even manage to get to the finish line despite the fact that my car was missing a wheel. I could see how that would upset some people, but I thought it was amusing. Seeing as how this is the kind of game that it is, I'd consider that more of a positive than a negative. Alongside being amused by how damaged the cars would get, the game's physics were also amusing due to how responsive they could be. Sometimes my car would be smashed by an obstacle in just the right way so that the car would end up flipping into the air. Sometimes it'd land right on its wheels, but most of the time it'd either land on its side or even on its roof. As long as the car was in good condition afterwards, it'd be reset to its neutral position, but if the car was too damaged or in too awkward of a position, you'd usually have to end up restarting the level. Not being a die-hard racing car enthusiast, I can't say that the game handles driving as well as X-Modern racing game, but when compared to some of the car racing games I've played, mainly a lot of Ridge Racer Type 4 and the early Gran Turismos, the driving that's offered in Avoid It is pretty basic. I know that some basic can be viewed negatively, but here it really is just basic. If anything, I thought that the camera was too basic. It's nice that you can control it and move it around your car, but I would have liked for there to have been a way to return the camera to its original position, mainly by clicking the right thumbstick. My suggestion is that specific because that's what I've encountered in other games, and I've enjoyed that. This really isn't a big deal, but I thought it was annoying having to manually control the camera to get it to go to its original position. It came off as if that were a detail that was overlooked. My reasoning is that if your game is short and lacking in certain areas, the least it could do is have the basics covered. As I previously mentioned, Avoid It has a lot of potential. In its current state, this game really isn't worth playing. While that's true, I saw enough that could be improved upon either for a sequel or an updated version. The game could be more fun if difficulty modes were added. You can have easy, medium, and hard modes. Depending on which setting you choose, you'd get traps/obstacles and a number of them that would match whichever difficulty you chose. On top of that, I'd make it so that the level would restart after having been hit by an obstacle. It's mainly because that's what I assumed would happen when I first started playing Avoid It, but I was wrong. The game playing out this way made it too easy for me, and I thought to myself, where's the fun or challenge in being hit by every single obstacle in a level and still manage to cross the finish line? I'm not saying that the game has to be unforgiving, but some games are fun because they push you to get good. I know that there are plenty of casual games out there that are meant to hold your hand, but that doesn't really match up with the overall theme of Avoid It. Besides that, I'd also include achievements for speed and flawless runs. The title of the game is literally Avoid It. You'd think that you'd be rewarded thanks to mastering the game, but you aren't. I don't think speed or flawless runs have to be mandatory, but I do know that there are players out there that love to be challenged. If they see a game like this and realize that it's possible and worth trying to not get hit by a single obstacle/trap or finish as quickly as possible, they'll go for it. It's mainly due to how I perceived the Voided to be a simplistic game, so I figured that including a level editor would also help spice things up. It's possible that making these levels was harder than it appears to be, but seeing how the finished product turned out, I doubt that. There's plenty of creative people out there that would take what this game initially has to offer and come up with intricate and enjoyable levels. I'm no developer, but I make these suggestions because I feel that they'd make the game more entertaining and it'd greatly add to the replay value. On that note, it's worth discussing this game's replay value. I got to experience that, but in a negative way. During my second or third play session with Avoided, I played and played until I started to ask myself, why does the game keep going despite only having 30 levels? It was then that I realized that the game goes back to the first level and you end up replaying what you've already beaten. The fact that that genuinely happened to me speaks volumes about this game. You'd think that it'd have an endgame credits scene or a simple, congratulations and thank you for playing, but that wasn't there. That's just more fuel to the fire that is the idea that this game feels incomplete and rushed. I don't know what the story is when it comes to avoid its development, but having played it, I think there's a reason, or more, as to why it turned out the way it did. I don't want to judge too harshly and say that the devs were lazy and they just wanted to shovel something out because it was better than delivering nothing, but it is what it is. Even without knowing what went on behind the scenes, you can imagine how the process was thanks to being able to experience the final product. I don't think this game is worth playing. It's not the worst game I've ever played, but it definitely left me feeling disappointed. The fact that I was amused and got some enjoyment from it makes it so that there is something of value here, but I don't think there are others as forgiving or understanding as I am. If you enjoyed this content, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share. Thank you very much for watching.